have to duck the asteroid or possibly bomb it with a Christmas pudding, welcome to Food and Drink. Now, do you remember the curious case of the two-pronged knife?
I've got one blade here, side of a blade for frozen food, and I've got one blade here for cutting bread or tarts. And I've got two prongs on the top, which is proving to be a mystery to me.
Well, happily, I understand the viewers have come to your rescue, Anthony.
Chris, they have over 70 letters, including some wonderfully wacky suggestions like pruning your roses. Well, no, I don't think so, but Owen Stewart from Dublin suggests scooping out the doughy part of a baguette or a bun. I don't think so, but nice try. Richard Halliday, aged 7, from Newcastle, says it's for getting pickled onions out of a jar. Well, not a bad idea, but I wonder whether you'd use a knife that long for that purpose. But Sheila Sharman from West Bromwich said she used it to separate frozen food that had got stuck together. Well, as one of these blades is for cutting frozen food, Sheila, you may well be right. But today, get down to your supermarket or fishmonger to order some tuna, because I'm going to prepare a fabulous grilled tuna on a tabbouleh salad.
Sounds delicious. I can't wait. Meanwhile, I'm going to be looking, however, at whiskey. I'm going to be telling you exactly what's what on the label, what you get when you see certain keywords, and I'm also going to be recommending the best inexpensive buys in the high street.
And all aboard for a nostalgic train journey. Leslie Waters recreates the meal of a lifetime for a couple who married almost 50 years ago, a meal they last enjoyed on their honeymoon in 1949.
These kitchens haven't changed much, probably in the last 10 years, but when Stan and Nora were on the train, the kitchens were much bigger and separate from the buffet.
A brief encounter that's lasted 50 years. But first, new fears about osteoporosis, or brittle bone disease. Tomorrow, leading nutritionists are to warn that poor diets among teenagers, especially girls, are greatly increasing their chances of suffering from the disease in later life. In particular, they say many girls are avoiding dairy products like these, which are vital sources of calcium. And the reason, they say, is that too many teenage girls are obsessed with slimming. Currently, over 500 people suffer bone fractures every day due to osteoporosis, causing severe pain and disability to the sufferer. The condition largely affects women, and the single biggest cause is thought to be the biological changes brought about by the menopause. But a diet high in calcium early on in life is thought to protect against osteoporosis. According to Margot Barker of Sheffield University, however, latest studies reveal that the majority of teenage girls are not achieving adequate calcium intake. She'll be joining other nutritionists at a special conference in London tomorrow to discuss the issue. So why might these calcium-rich foods be being avoided? The answer, according to experts, is that dairy foods are seen as fattening, and for many teenagers that, sadly, appears to be of the greatest importance. Dr. John Balding is to publish a major study tomorrow which shows that around 2/3 of teenage schoolgirls are currently on a diet and simply avoid dairy products. Rachel Phillips reports on the latest evidence.
The diets of British teenagers are once again under scrutiny, but this time it's not about eating too much of these. Or these. The issue is, in fact, what they don't eat and drink. Teenagers are tending to avoid dairy products, but that means they're missing out on a major source of calcium. And that's bad news for growing bones. New evidence suggests that the causes of osteoporosis, brittle bone disease, can be traced back years before the painful effects are felt.
The teenage years are especially important because the bones are not only growing in length, but they're actually growing in strength. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about. Your skeleton isn't a dead coat hanger to hang clothes on. It's something that must be fed, it must be exercised to actually stimulate bone growth. If they do avoid calcium or don't take enough, then they will be more at risk of osteoporosis in later life.
But the fact is, teenagers seem far more obsessed with short-term dieting than with their long-term health. And milk certainly isn't a fashionable drink.
Do you like drinking milk?
It's not one of my favourite drinks. No, I hate it.
I hate milk. I don't really drink milk.
Do you ever go on a diet?
Yeah, I do a lot.
I do go on a diet sometimes.
Sometimes I can skip out on a main meal and just have like a packet of crust.
I tend to always miss breakfast.
I'd like to be really slim and be really tall and really beautiful.
Yeah, I'd love to be slim, but can't have everything.
The beneficial effect of gaining extra calcium by drinking milk was recently proven by a study on 11 and 12-year-old girls.
We studied 80 girls from Sheffield, and half of the girls received 1 pint of milk extra per day, and the other half didn't. And we measured the bone density over an 18-month period. And over that time, the girls who had the extra milk gained more bone density. And what we think that means is that in the future, they will have stronger skeletons and be less likely to have osteoporosis.
So what are the 3 most important lessons we need to learn to reverse the trend? Lesson number 1 for teenagers is don't skip meals and replace with fizzy drinks or sugary snacks.
Girls at this age, we need to encourage them to change their eating habits. One of the important things is that they shouldn't skip breakfast, because the breakfast time is the common time for having cereals along with milk, and that's when girls would get most of their milk intake during the day.
Lesson number 2. Exercise both promotes a healthy appetite and increases bone strength.
Girls should be thinking about taking enough exercise, so unfortunately watching television isn't enough. Weight-bearing exercise includes things such as running, jogging, aerobics, tennis, ball games.
Lesson number 3. Eat a balanced and varied diet.
I think there's been a mixed message given to especially teenagers about fat in the diet and about dairy products being bad. Because of weight gain and because of cholesterol and heart disease and things like that. And in fact, there aren't bad foods, there are bad diets, so it's monotonous diets which are bad. Mixed diets, where nothing particularly predominates, are more healthy.
And if you're a teenager or a parent, we put some details about that story on CFAX for you. Anthony.
Well, thanks, Chris. Today, it's grilled tuna on tabbouleh salad. Now, tabbouleh is a very popular salad at the moment because a lot of Middle Eastern influence is coming into our cooking, especially in the restaurant world. And it's made with this bulgur wheat here, or cracked wheat. All you have to do is put a couple of ounces in a bowl and pour over some boiling water and let that soak for about 20 minutes until it's like this. And if it needs wringing out, just squeeze it out, and it swells up like that. And you want that little bit of nuttiness, which you won't get if you boil it in a pan. Now, if we come over here, I'm going to show you this tuna here. We can treat this like a piece of fillet steak. You can cook it rare, which an awful lot of people like, or you can cook it a little bit more. And for that, we're just going to dribble a little olive oil on the top, rub it over like that, and the other side. With the old hands, bit of salt and pepper, or the other way around, and put that into a nice hot ridged pan like that. And we cook it very briefly, but back to our tabbouleh salad. Now in here goes lime juice, a little bit of cinnamon. Cinnamon used a lot in savoury cooking in the Middle East, so about half a teaspoon of that. Allspice, half a teaspoon of that. A lot of people think allspice is a mixture of spices. Well, in fact, it's not. It's just one berry that has this, if you smell there, wonderful sort of smells of apple pie. Well, I'm sounding like Jilly now. Anyway, lovely stuff. Also, some sultanas, some toasted almonds, which you can buy in a supermarket, and some apricots. Those last 3 ingredients were a little extension of mine. You wouldn't find it in a classic tabbouleh salad. Okay, let's go back to our tuna. Now, if you want restaurant-type markings, just turn your fish at about 45 degrees, push it down, increase the heat a little bit, and you can see already it's cooking very nicely, just like a piece of steak. Back to the salad. Here, this is the healthy bit as well as the grain wheat. All that parsley goes into our salad. So in goes the parsley, about 8 ounces of parsley there, would you believe? About 2 ounces of mint, chopped mint. And remember, all these herbs can be chopped while this tabbouleh salad is soaking, while the bulgur wheat is soaking. Stir that together. Finally, some olive oil, about 6 fluid ounces of olive oil. Get that all in there. Look at the colour. That is how it should be, bright green. Don't make this too far in advance because the lime juice will take out the colour from the parsley. Let's turn our tuna. Look at that, perfect markings. These pans are so good, for that professional touch. Right, I'm going to slice up a few. Oh, look, you see, cut my finger. Hasn't done a whole series, and I go and do it now. Blue plaster. You can sell if it falls off in the food. Right, chop the spring onions, roughly cut like that. Pop those in to the salad. A tomato. Now, you know tomato, of course. These are plum tomatoes, a little bit more flavour than the ordinary tomatoes this time of year. How to take out our seeds, very simple. Just take the knife like that, push down on that end, and the seeds lift up, and you can take it off and get the core out at the same time. Right, tomatoes into our salad. I've added more tomatoes and more bits and pieces than they would, but I love this colour. I mean, the smells, everything in there talks about spring and freshness. Ah, it's delicious. A little more salt and pepper. And we're ready to go. See how quick that was? Right, let me pop that onto our dish. A nice scoop like that. Vegetarians can eat that as it is. Well, I eat it as it is, and I'm not a vegetarian. It is so delicious. On goes the tuna. This will be sort of medium rare. And here comes Chris, ready to tuck in.
Do you know that tuna in Portuguese is atum? And
that sounds
Portuguese,
very interesting, Chris.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Have you got a story behind this?
And you'd be riveted. And the Portuguese for good is bom. So in Portugal, you can actually buy a tin of atum bom.
Oh.
Not a lot of people know that.
He's such a wit.
This is delicious.
It is nice, isn't it?
Mm.
So fresh.
It looks absolutely scrumptious. The only thing you need before it is this, a glass of whiskey. Now, whiskey loosely means water of life from the Gaelic, and it's made all over the world. Now, most whiskies are actually blends, and they're going to say blended on the label. Like this. Well, not as big as this, actually quite small. And they combine industrially produced grain whiskey, made predominantly from corn or maize, with a minor proportion of the more exalted malt whiskey, which is traditionally made in a lovely folksy pot still from malted barley. Now, the better the blend, the more mature it is. But of course, you pay for an older whiskey. And the other thing is, it only matures when it's in a cask. It doesn't mature in bottle. So don't buy a bottle and store it away, because it won't actually improve. It won't deteriorate, but it won't improve. Now on to malt whiskey. Now, malt whiskey is the more rarefied end of the market. And one of the key words you're going to see on a bottle of malt whiskey, not as big as this again, is single. The other, of course, you're going to see is malt. There are about 100 different malt whiskey distilleries in Scotland, and it's quite extraordinary. No one's quite clear of why, but each one gives a slightly different flavour and a distinctive style. It's quite unlike vodka, for instance, in this respect. Now, it's St. Patrick's Day, so a word about Irish whiskey, of course. Now, Irish whiskies predate Scotch whiskies. They're made from a mixture of unmalted barley and malted barley, with, just for good measure, a little corn, a little oats, a little rye chucked in. And where Scotch is double distilled, that means distilled twice, Irish is triple distilled, which gives a very light touch to the slightly oily scent. Now, when you taste it, it's lovely. It's very piercing, very floral, very clean, and with a sort of silky feel. And I can't help this. I always think Irish whiskey has a tiny element of cooking oil to it. Anyway, now on some recommendations. I've done a big tasting of own brands, both of blends and of malt whiskies. And the best blend to come out under a tenner is this one here. It's Glen Afton blended Scotch whisky, £8.19 at Spar, which is a good price. It doesn't have the greatest nose. It is a cheap whisky, which probably means that it's not terribly old. So there's a little burnt plastic edge to the scent. But when you come to taste it, it's just as smooth as you want. It's round, it's soft, it's got good body, good price. Great, especially if you're going to mix it with something. Now on to another recommendation, the Fast Malt. This is a Highland malt. It says Speyside. Speyside is the heartland of the Highland area, which always produces a sort of smoky style of malt whisky. And this one is smoky. It's got a lovely tar and oak quality on the nose. Don't forget that malt whiskies are matured in oak casks. This is one of the contributory factors to the flavour. Has a little pear droppy note too. And when you taste it, It's dry, it's round, it's smooth, it's very delicious. And now on to this. Now this is a sort of blunderbuss among malts. This is an Islay malt. It comes from the island of Islay, which is in the Inner Hebrides. It's a single malt, £12.99 from Morrison's. Now swirl round. I can't believe it. It's got the sort of deepest, darkest scent. It smells of creosote and kaolin and phenolic sort of peat. And it's got a delicacy of violets. It's buttery, big and gorgeous. Now, very pleased to tell that this market is actually growing. The malt whisky market's growing, and there's a new Islay being launched in a week or so. Just to tell you that because it's topical. It's called Lochindale. This isn't Lochindale. This is the Islay own label. Get your nose in, Chris.
But that's a great price because, I mean, Islay's like Bowmore or Lagavulin. You only get 4 bottles for 100 quid, which is outrageous.
Which is outrageous. This is a very, very good price indeed.
I do love it. It's a glorious drink, isn't it? Lovely stuff. Now, a generous helping of nostalgia and romance. A few weeks ago, you may recall, we asked you to write to us about the most memorable meal you've ever had, and we've had hundreds of letters. These are just a few, and many thanks for those. One in particular came from Stan and Nora Kulig of Durham, and what a story it is. Stan, a Polish officer in the war, fled to Britain for safety in 1944. He planned to go back to his beloved Poland, but then he didn't plan on meeting Nora. The two of them fell in love, and they married in 1949. And that's where Food and Drink comes in. On their honeymoon, Stan and Nora took the Queen of Scots train from Newcastle to Edinburgh and paid 11 shillings for a meal they say they've never forgotten. They've never been back to Edinburgh since, so we've taken them on the same route for a trip back in time. And they're blissfully unaware that Leslie Waters is to recreate their special honeymoon meal aboard that train. But before the meal, here's Stan and Nora on how they first met.
You sit in a dance floor, a dance hall, and there's maybe 20 girls and maybe 100 men. So you have to develop some sort of technique how to catch you. So I always look very sad. I look like a old spaniel dog, you know, sad eyes, and so I think she probably took a pity on me.
The day we got married, I had a white wedding, and I had a white dress with red roses, and it was a day, you know, sort of you're numb from up here somewhere. You sort of think, hey, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing, you know?
I remember I squeezed your hand very hard.
I know, in church, when I was coming up the altar, you know, he put his hand down and he had my fingers and he nipped them, and I'm sure if I hadn't been in church, I'd be all, oh, you know.
So after the wedding, we decided to go to catch the train from Newcastle to Edinburgh, where we booked our lodgings for our short 1 week's honeymoon.
50 years on, we asked Leslie Waters to recreate Stan and Nora's most memorable meal.
These kitchens haven't changed much, probably in the last 10 years, but when Stan and Nora were on the train, the kitchens were much bigger and separate from the buffet.
Leslie has just 2.5 hours to create the anniversary dinner, a challenge in itself, especially since Nora remembers every detail.
Nicely seated down, you know, and we sort of looked at each other, and I looked at my wedding ring. I thought, my God, I've committed myself, sort of thing, you know. There's no getting away from it all. And anyhow, the chappie came up and he gave us a menu, and we had soup, chicken soup, and then sort of goose. We had goose, and also, believe it or not, spam.
The first thing we're going to do is make some canapes with spam. You need a teaspoon of Dijon mustard and then some runny honey, because you need the sweetness there to give a really nice flavour to that spam. Then some dill. Now, Stan is from Poland, and I wanted to get a little bit of sort of a Polish feel to this. Mix them together, like so, and then you can add some white wine vinegar. You want to put in about a tablespoon. Don't use malt vinegar because it's not very nice and it'll make it go a bit of a nasty colour. You want to add your oil so that we sort of make a sort of dressing stroke mayonnaise. That is now ready for the spam. Now what I've done here is, rather than sort of chop it up, I've kind of sliced it quite thinly. We've got some little fruits of toasted bread, and onto that brush some melted butter. And then what you can do, some nice sort of crisp leaves on top of your croûtes, like so. I'm going to use my fingers here and just pile it on. It's quite a rich mixture of pork and ham.
So those are the canapés. And remember, Stan and Nora don't know anything about this. As far as they're concerned, this is simply a nostalgic return to Edinburgh by train.
Morning, Stan. You ready?
Yes, pleased to see you. You're all excited.
You all ready?
Yes, I'm getting my coat on. I'm usually the lamb's tail.
Ready for past 50 years, are you?
Yes, yes.
Might I your idea?
You're fine, yes.
Thank you, Pes. Come on, we go.
The meal was memorable, actually, because very, very rarely you went out for a meal. Have a meal on the train, something special.
For the goose, I'm not roasting a whole goose because roasting a whole bird in the oven on a train while it's moving, don't think it's a good idea. So you can get goose breast, but you can do the same recipe by using duck breast if you want to, because they're quite expensive. I'm just going to start it off by searing it in a very, very hot pan, first of all. Okay. And then it can go straight onto a rack. Now you need to put this on a rack because it's going to, you know, kick out lots and lots and lots of fat. They have potatoes, and what I've done is a bit of a Polish thing here. I'm going to add some sour cream to those and just mix them up there so that they're really creamy. Okay, this is the tomato chutney, which is just simply baked onions, apples and courgettes in some olive oil, and then I've added some red wine, and then little tiny plum or cherry tomatoes added with some thyme, and then more red wine and balsamic vinegar, and bake for a further 10 minutes until the sort of tomatoes kind of pop, really. And then it's ready.
The other dishes on the menu are chicken soup and plum and almond cake served with cantaloupe custard.
Well, we're coming into Durham now. Any minute now. They don't know anything about this. Where are they? Stan and Nora. Hello.
Hello, to see you.
I'm Leslie. Hi. Hi.
Though Stan and Nora play it cool, the carefully planned surprise has come off. And now it's time to reminisce.
There was a gentleman sitting opposite me, very much like you.
It was you. It was. He's here again.
Well.
No, he was the same sort of age in those days, and he dropped a P.
Pee on it.
I always remember that.
It's your little canapé of spam.
Can you remember spam in those days?
Yes, I remember spam fritters.
I can. They rolled it in a little roll. You know, the goose and then a little roll. Yeah.
I remember a little bit parsley on top.
And a little bit parsley still on top.
Can you taste that it's spam? What can you...
Quite nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, Nora.
Dear me.
And Stan. Now, this is the roast goose,
Yes.
which I know that you had on
That's
your
right,
journey.
we did. It was nothing like this. This is beautiful.
We'll come again.
Now, are there any secrets you'd like to tell us about your honeymoon?
There were lodgings. You see, we had a bedroom here, and next bedroom belonged to the mother of the landlady. So I said, I better be careful, be very quiet during the night. And at the end of the honeymoon on Friday night, she says to me, says, well, you know, my mother, Mrs. Patterson, she's deaf.
Oh, no! We are. Nora. Stan. Well, here we are in Edinburgh. I hope you. Oh, the end of the journey. I'm gonna leave you now to have your second honeymoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
I
very
hope you enjoyed it. All the best. Good luck.
Thank you very much. It's been a beautiful meal.
And you.
Thanks very much. Every time I see you on television, I think about you.
Oh, thank you. Have a brilliant time here, won't you?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
An awfully big adventure for Stan and Nora, and our thanks to Leslie. If you've got a meal that you'd like us to recreate, the meal of a lifetime, do drop us a line. The address is on CFAX. You're a bit of a spam freak, aren't you, Anthony?
I am, Chris. I am. Memories of childhood. Unfortunately, they've decided to stop making spam in this country, although you'll still be able to buy it. So I went out, sad person I am, and bought 2 cases, which I'm going to dig out in 50 years' time, if I'm still around, and have little memories myself. But today, with a little quickie, gnocchi di patate. You can get gnocchi from Semolina, but you'll see these packets in the supermarkets, and they need a little things doing to them. Sauces, anything you want. I've got one here, in which I've got shallots, onion, garlic and thyme cooking down. I'm going to add a little dry vermouth in there. Just give it those herby flavours of vermouth. I'm popping spinach. Little already washed spinach you can buy in the supermarkets. I'll clear the mess up later. And you just cook that down. And whilst that's wilting, as they say in the trade, let's talk a little bit about this gnocchi. You put it into boiling water and cook it for 3 minutes until they float to the surface. And when they do that, you scoop them out and you can drain them and put them in a dish just like that. So they're little dumplings, but they do need something else. They're very bland. Here's another dish. You may have read over the weekend that Prince Charles's favourite British dish, surprise, surprise, is gnocchi with pesto. And here I've created one where, just to taste, I've blended some gnocchi with some creme fraiche. You can get red gnocchi, you can get red pesto, anything you want. Just mix it to your taste. You can get packets of sauce in these Tetra packets now, which you can just fold in. Or you can do something like this. A little bit of cream goes in. And some Gorgonzola cheese. You could use any sort of blue cheese you want, Stilton, Danish blue. Just mix that all together. You see the spinach is now wilted down. Some black pepper. And a little bit of salt, not too much, because the Gorgonzola is quite salty in its own right. That is then poured over our gnocchi. Just give it a stir. On some breadcrumbs, you can mix breadcrumbs with parmesan if you want to, or just breadcrumbs like that. And that goes in the oven for about 20 minutes, 200 degrees centigrade, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, gas mark 6 for 20 minutes. And this beauty is what you end up with. I think you'll agree. Incredibly Moorish, really delicious, very simple, and actually very cheap.
A dish fit for a prince, though arguably more Italian than English. That's it for now. Next week, Gilly is on the first tee in Darjeeling, while Anthony has 3 tempting salads to put a spring in your step. Tandoori chicken, rocket and chicory with some parmesan, and broccoli with capers. So do join us. Till then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
BBC Two's Having It All series continues next with a spot of juggling.